everybody. This is the Build in El Salvador segment, and we're honored and excited to have Aaron from MURPH's Life with us today. And we're going to be literally talking about building in El Salvador because Aaron's building a lot of things. So got a great show for you today. I'm Jordan Herbs.
And I am Michael Ruiz.
And this is Aaron Murphy.
Yes. It's cool that camera just follow you.
Yeah, he can control it over there.
Oh, okay, man. Technology, bro.
So why don't we start hearing a little about where you're from and how slowly but surely you ended up in El Salvador? I know it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah. So born in Canada, northern Alberta. Grew up in a little trailer park up there, trailer trash boy. Always getting into fights, burning things. Very wild child, And then when I was moving into high school, right after elementary, we moved to Utah. So super change for us there. And lived in Utah for a bit, but I lived in California for 4 years, Texas for a year. Now 7-8 years all over Latin America, from Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia. So I've just been moving around since day one.
Wow. So you've been in Latin America for 8 years now.
Yeah, going on 8 years.
Wow.
In total, yeah.
And so what brought you down here originally?
Originally, I was, so I grew up Mormon, and they do the mission, the elders that have the little, and so from 19 to 21, 18 to 20, most kids will go for 2 years, just one time. And I went to Brazil. And so when I got back, it was, probably within a year, I started throwing parties and I, stopped going to church. And that just kind of became my life. But I always wanted to go back and experience, Latin America, not as a missionary, but as someone who could just go backpacking. And
would you say like living in Brazil had an effect on your outlook, especially towards, I guess, being a Mormon and that whole lifestyle? Was Brazil like so crazy?
Let me put this on silence so we don't get no more dings. Okay, could you do that one more? Ask that one more time.
Oh,
again?
I'm just curious. I mean, so I had a pretty stringent lifestyle along certain lines, and then I moved to France for a year, and it changed everything. Just everything, my values. Just when I saw a new culture, the way they lived, I resonated in a different way. So going to Brazil as a Mormon, did it make you kind of like do a double take on your life?
I mean, a little bit, because, so for example, like if you're Mormon and you grow up in Utah, you really do grow up in this bubble, right?
Sure.
And every country has their cultures, whether it's a whole bunch of Catholics or a whole bunch of Jews, whatever, or Muslims, right? So because I grew up in Canada, I didn't really have that influence, like I grew up with everyone we lived just outside of a, Indian reservation, indigenous reservation. And it was, like kids are huffing gasoline in the bus, like smell this, Aaron.
Mormon kids, or just
no? I was the only
kids?
one.
Oh, okay.
In northern Alberta, there's none of us there.
Oh, right, northern Alberta.
Yeah, northern Alberta. So kind of like having that as my original upbringing, it was, I think the biggest thing was seeing so much religion in South America. Right, it's so much more strong than it is in North America. I think people have a stronger connection to their faith down here. So seeing that, like, knocking on doors and saying, hey, I'm going to teach you a message, about Jesus Christ. And people are like, oh, I have my faith in Seventh-day Adventists, in Pentecostal, my faith is already strong in whatever religion it was. And that to me was kind of like, oh, you grow up in, for example, the religion I grew up in is, this is the true church. Be baptized in this church. And so for kind of a young kid to hear that, it's a little, like, oh, you already have, I got, it's just a part of growing up, realizing there's other cultures, other faiths.
So you're 18, 19, 20 when you went to Brazil?
Yeah.
And then you went back, and then how long before you decided I have to go back to Latin America?
I always wanted to go back as a backpacker, I think I went to Mexico maybe once or twice, but it was like spring break, we're just getting like coked out and just complete different, the Mexican, college experience at Rocky Point with theirs, with ASU. And, but I wanted like, as the years went by, I'm like, I want to go backpacking. I want to experience it, not as like a party for, not as a religious trip, not as a party trip, but just kind of go backpacking. But I just got so caught up in, in life, where a lot of people, we just don't follow our dreams. And, it wasn't until I just kind of hit rock bottom from my work, from partying too much, that I'm like, all right, I have nothing else going on, so here we go.
It's time to do this.
Yeah.
I remember my first time going to Mexico. I was a student studying abroad, and I met these two guys that had traveled for 2 years around Central America without paying for transportation, without paying for accommodation. They walked, they hitchhiked, they knocked on doors saying, "Hey, we're two gringos traveling. We're wondering if you have a spare bedroom to stay in, blah, blah, blah." And their story was so inspiring. I'm like, man, one day I want to travel like that. I want to do that. But it was always just like in the back of my mind, I had to go back to college, go back to California, and go work and do all these things. I'm like, man, how can I just escape like that and live that lifestyle?
Yeah.
So eventually I made it happen, and it wasn't everything that I thought it could be.
Yeah. But once you do it too, I mean, you kind of, a lot of people want to travel and they think it's going to be so expensive. You know what I mean? And I think if you're in your young 20s, you know, you don't have to live a lavish lifestyle. You know what I mean? You can stay in hostels. You can meet friends easily. There's a lot of people that want to learn your language. So one of my favorite things when I was traveling, I mean, I lived on $600 a month and I was still traveling country to country in 2018, 2019, you know, like in 600, I still ate out, you know, I wasn't eating out at the fanciest restaurants, but I worked a lot on like Tinder and Bumble. That was like my favorite. And it was cool because I wasn't going on like the sex rampage, right? Like the year before, I'm managing like nightclubs, and so it was really cool. Like right when I started, it was I'm like on this cleanse, right, from like health to everything. But just kind of going back to that point, there were so many people that wanted to learn English. You know what I mean? So I'd meet people on like Bumble, and you know, I'm like, just become friends, and then hey, I have an extra bedroom. Come stay here for a month. So I stayed in like Cali, Colombia. I stayed in Brazil. I stayed all over the place, and it didn't cost me anything. And it was cool. You know, we have breakfast and just practice English. Then, you know, the chick goes to work. I hang out. I go walk around the city all day long. You know, so people can have really cool experiences.
Yeah.
For cheap, you know, in different countries.
Yeah, like you said, when you're in your early 20s, it's like so much easier. You're so much more resilient. Your body can just handle stuff differently.
Yeah.
You don't need privacy as much. Like your diet.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're traveling. How did you end up in El Salvador?
And I wanted to go to every Latin country, you know, so it was like 11, 12 countries already hit. I went back to Brazil. I went to, I mean, everywhere from Paraguay to Colombia, Ecuador. And it was when COVID was going down, you know, it's kind of a touchy subject online still a little bit, you know, but I didn't want to get the shot. And we were stuck in an airport in Mexico. Our time ran up and we were supposed to fly back to Ecuador. And my, you know, my wife wanted to get it, you know, she wanted to get the COVID shot. I was still like, this is kind of weird. And they canceled our flight. So we missed our flight. They wouldn't even let her go back into her own country. And then the government's like, well, we can't let you out of the airport because you're here illegally, you know? So it was kind of like a weird, freaky, you know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, F it. We're going to go to Brazil. We're going to go, you know, and they're like, no, you know?
Because of the shot?
Yeah, because you couldn't go anywhere. It was like a weird timing, maybe like 6, 7, 8, I don't remember how many months like after COVID started.
So it's like a limbo period where you're just kind of stuck.
We're basically on house arrest inside of the Mexican airport in
like that movie
in the capital.
It's
yeah,
like Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah, you know, it was pretty weird. And I did a live, and a bunch of people were like, come to El Salvador, you don't have to have the shot. And I wanted to meet President Bukele because I heard about him recently, you know, about what he was doing with Bitcoin, and I thought it was, you know, pretty cool. And so I posted on my live, I'm like, everyone, it was either Instagram or TikTok. I was like, everyone go tag Bukele. I want to go hang out over there. It was mostly a joke. I didn't think anything of it. And then it was like an hour later, I see this notification from the president. He's like, hey man, it's like just like that. Hey man, you want to come to my country?
What?
And I was talking to a friend. I was like, dude, I think he messaged me. I'm like, nah, this has got to be a scam. And I click on it. I'm like, oh shit, dude, he has millions of subscribers. It's him. And we chatted for a little bit, and then we flew that same day. We land in El Salvador, and as soon as we get here, dude had like MURPHSLIFE little sign and let us chill in the, you know, in that little, I don't know what it's called,
so
little lounge.
Sorry, I'm just missing something here of the story. So how did that happen? Like, how did the president get to know who you are? Like,
I was on a live. I think it was on Twitter.
So you
Twitter,
developed
Instagram, and I was like, everyone go like tag Bukele and tell him to invite MURPHSLIFE. to El Salvador. And so it's just like thousands of people.
Really? Did you develop that following doing content then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was focused on, at that time, on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok and Instagram. We grew pretty fast, about 6 million subscribers in maybe the first like year and a half, 2 years.
That's insane. Let's talk about that, because is that when you were still in Ecuador when you started doing that content?
Yeah.
So how did that all begin? You were in Ecuador at the beginning of the lockdowns, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so had you already met your wife?
It was like right there.
Okay.
Right at the beginning of 2020. So I went from Colombia. I just got back from Brazil, back in Colombia, and then I'm crossing the border. And it was so wild. Like I still think about this all the time. I'm in like this bus, just like the shitty little bus. And this is like 2 days before COVID shut everything down. And I'm like right before, maybe like an hour and a half before hitting the border. And this is like the jungles where a lot of the gorilla are, in Colombia. And there's like the shaman guy who's like, I healed people from cancer. I healed people from this. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I healed people from like serious diseases. And I was like, I'm gonna go with you, man. And he's like, okay. And then the bus stops in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, kind of looking at my phone. There's a little bit of service. I'm like, this is just like fucking jungle, And I was like, I'm always down for wild shit, So I get off the bus. So I got off the bus with him, and he's like, all right, we're gonna walk this way, like into the thing, And then I'm like, this is a little fucking weird. I just met this guy, like a few hours ago, and we're gonna walk into a jungle where
And you're en route to Ecuador.
En route
So
to
it's like
Ecuador.
southern Colombia? No.
Yeah, like right by Ipiales is the city, maybe like an hour and a half before. I don't remember, but it was like before getting to the border. And I like, I'm like, I was gonna do it, but it was, you can say this is God, the Holy Spirit, whatever. Something like was strong. It wasn't out of fear. I do dumb shit all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of us do. To even be down here, we're kind of outside the box there. But it was something like powerful. Was like, this is not your path.
Go with the guy.
And I just knew. I was like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here. And so the bus is going, and I'm like, wait, bum, 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 bum. I was like, hey, sorry, dude. Like, good luck on your journey. And he's like, no worries, it's chill. He just like goes inside of the forest. I get back on the bus, and then a little bit later, I get to the border. I'm in Ecuador, and I just have my big ass backpack. I go and I stay in a hotel for a night, and then COVID hits, and they're like, well, we're gonna shut down the hotel. And I'm like, fuck, so I'm just walking around this neighborhood. That's where I met the little grandma. I don't know if you guys saw that video. We came back and spent $500,000 on them. We built her like beautiful Airbnb, 2 stories for the great grandmas to live underneath. We built like 6 other little houses, and I gave her son, who's a semi-truck driver, a brand new semi-truck. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So something was pulling you to cross that border so you'd be locked down in Ecuador.
Instead of getting fucking raped in the jungle by some gorillas,
Well, not necessarily, but maybe.
But maybe,
It was more, it sounds to me like it's more about like 2 days later, everything changed around the world. And it was perhaps you're on this path now because you crossed the border instead of doing ayahuasca in the jungle.
Yeah. No, it would have been a totally different. I wouldn't have my family. I wouldn't be here building our community.
Yeah.
And that kind of happens every single day. We make little decisions that totally alter the course of our lives. Think about how many unexpected pregnancies. You know what I mean? Every single day we just do small stuff that.
So there you are. It's 2020. You're in Ecuador. You've been traveling. And so you don't have a following yet, or you do? Are you making content yet?
My following is like my aunt, my sister, So to learn Spanish, I brought this little Sony camera, like an A7, whatever. I don't know what it's called. It was like a cheap $200 one. And I was making like YouTube videos. I love documentaries. So I'm like filming people when I was in Colombia and in Brazil. I'm filming people. And then I would like use Google Translate, and it would take me hours and hours, but it was never like, oh, I'm going to be like an influencer that goes around helping people. It was giving me purpose. So if anyone wants to travel long periods of time, you have to have a purpose. You have to have a hobby. Otherwise it gets old quick, So some people do photography. Some people do journal writing, they're writing a book, you have to have something that really kind of feeds your soul. Otherwise, it's just.
Well, you need something to pass the time. So that's
Yeah.
what exactly happened to me. After college, I went to go live that life I mentioned earlier without money, without plans. And after a few years, I'm like, this is boring. Not boring, but I just don't feel like I have any purpose. So in
Yeah.
2014, I started a YouTube channel, which turned into, by 2015, a nonprofit, a 501c3. So I could go around the world planning trips from my nonprofit. Like, hey, it looks like your orphanage needs content over there in Africa. Like, why don't I come stay with you for a few months, put me up, and we'll make a documentary of it. And so that's exactly what I did for like
That's
5 years along the same line. But no, it's a really good advice to anyone that wants to travel. Have a project,
Yeah.
create content. You don't have to be like starting a business and being a digital nomad, which a lot of people would encourage also, but just have a project where you're providing some kind of value to someone somewhere. So whether you're making content that someone out there will watch, or you're making content for someone that someone needs, like, hey, I need to tell my story of my little business here, or else I can't feed my family, right? Or something
Yeah.
like that. So did your content turn into that?
Yeah. Kind of pretty much, like my as soon as I got stuck, it was different because down here, in the States, everyone was getting their checks from the government, whether depending on the state, $500, $1,500 a week sometimes for some people. But in these countries down here, it's like people were locked up for, 4 months and no one has savings. The ambulantes, the people that work in the street go day by day. And you know what I mean? So it's like you can be in the street for an hour, one person can go shopping, only in these stores. So I was staying between this grandma's house and this like this shitty apartment complex, man. It was like every floor shared one bathroom. There's like 6, 7 apartments, and we had one
Wow.
toilet, no toilet seat, all Venezuelan immigrants, And so I stayed in the towel room, which is just like infested with mold, and we had a little mattress we found outside of the dumpster, that we grabbed and put there. And uh, I could sometimes hear like kids crying at night and, just chatting with my buddy. Kind of like a bodyguard at the time, like when they're like crossing to Colombia legally, and it was just like, you know, uh yeah, we could hear these kids crying, and then he'd be like, yeah, no one has food. So people would sometimes take cardboard and put it in that shitty like oil, and kind of cut it up, and that would fill kids up,
Oh
like
my
fried
God.
cardboards,
And vegetable oil,
you
seed
know,
oil.
and a lot of things just from the mountains, a lot of plants that they normally wouldn't eat. And, so it kind of goes to show that the world can shut down and people had to resort and learning, like, can I eat this plant? Can I not eat this plant? So seeing a lot of that. But I was kind of making these YouTube videos where it was like 24 hours with a Venezuelan family, 24 hours. I was really enjoying that. I would sleep at their houses. I would like stay at my 2 places, and then I would go and sleep or just stay with the family, and then film it and then make these little, they got like 1,000 views, like family friends. But it was really cool. And so I made a Patreon. My aunt was sending like $500 a month, cousins, friends, like $10, $50. I'll go grocery shopping and then just like deliver it to them on this YouTube channel. And then my sister at the time was like, hey, you should put this on TikTok. And I was just like against. I'm like, it's a pedophile app. Like, I always called it the pedophile app. Old men watching little girls dance.
Yeah.
Which it was at that time.
Yeah, everyone was dancing back. I remember the lockdowns. We were in Argentina, but everywhere I go, like in the neighborhoods, like there would just be all these kids doing these dance things. I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, that's the TikTok app. I'm like, keep me away from that.
Yeah, right, dude. Yeah, no. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I was like one of my friends, and then and then my sister, and so they made this app for me, and then they just took my Instagram stories. My Instagram was just 5,000 people. It was just my regular friends from working in nightclubs. And so they would like take those and then make it. And then some of the videos got like 100,000, 2, 3, 400,000 views. I was like, what the shit? Like, I spend like weeks to make one video on YouTube and it gets like 50 views, max 1,000 views. And because at the time, like it wasn't necessarily just helping people. Like I did this thing where I would ride with the grandma. Her son was a semi truck driver, and they were the only ones on the roads except police, And so I'd like stay in the bed. He worked for a company, so I would like stay in the bed and hide under a blanket. Thousands of checkpoints, military, police,
Oh,
and I love that. I started making friends with like truck driver. I felt like a lot lizard, you know what I mean? Like this little prostitute, like around. And I'm like, hey, where you going? I want to go to the Amazon. Hey, I want to go to Guayaquil, and I want to check out the beach. I was just, I got stir crazy. So I'm like hiding from police doing this. And that's kind of why I came back and got him a semi truck, because I made that friendship with him. But that's how it started. And then another thing, how the people made money on the border was, it was kind of fascinating because the borders were shut down. So all the Venezuelans would sneak through this giant canyon into Colombia. There's a famous church like in this canyon called I don't remember what it's called, but it's in Ipiales. And they'd have to like sneak through this like kind of dangerous canyon and then get here in Colombia. And so we would like sneak in, I'd have a couple YouTube videos on this, like showing how we
Wow.
do it. I would do this on TikTok and it would just get millions of views. People loved it, and we would go there with dollars because we would have a 30%, roughly a 30% profit. They're just buying like shitty hot dogs, like food that, really poor people can semi afford. We just buy this food and then bring it back and then kind of sneak out and sell it house to house. And, cigarettes were way cheaper. We'd be like hustling hot dogs and cigarettes. And I was filming this. I took a lot of it down once the theme changed, so that's kind of how it started. And then I had money from like my family, and there's like two people that really grew my page. There was this blind guy who hasn't eaten in 2 days, and I was like, this is like Jeff. I was just kind of filming it, feeling stupid. I'm like, all right, this is Jeff. He hasn't eaten in 2 days.
He's blind.
And he's blind. Yeah. It was like super, just like, me filming myself, which anyway, I'm like, and we went and got like the soup, the famous like fish soup in Ecuador. I'm like, here you go. Here's like $20. Here's $50, whatever it was. And then, that really started to grow. And it got kind of crazy too, because during COVID, like everyone stopped on, because everyone was just getting poor as shit, even in Canada and the United States. So no one was really on my Patreon anymore. My aunt had to cut it off. And it got to like this kid, and it was just like my money is running out. And this kind of ties back where I'm in the bed, kind of by from the dumpster. And I realized I didn't even have enough money to go home. It was like the last flight, that was leaving. And I'm like, I don't want to like borrow money from friends. I'm just gonna stay here. And so I ended up staying, and I'm like lying on this bed, and I did a video before I uploaded it. And it was like this kid. It was my first video that hit 1 million views. And his mom like just abandoned his 14-year-old kid. His little brother's like 9. She ran off with a Peruvian to Peru. And I did a little video with him. And then when I woke up in the morning, my sister put Venmo on the account. It was like $10,000 when I woke up, and my money was gone. I like gave this kid the last of my money, and it was like that night I'm just like laying in this bed, and it was cool because like it was a very powerful spiritual experience that everyone will have these eventually in your life, if you're following your purpose. Where I was just like, I had to hit rock bottom and enjoy sleeping on a rock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like accepting. And and it was this powerful, like, I remember I was just like feeling like this ecstasy. I'm like, well, I'm happy, sleeping on this nasty bed. Like, wow, I kept thinking in my mind, like, I feel like I'm Aladdin, like little kid watching these cartoons, and I'm living that, I'm like, I felt joy. I'm like, everything's gonna be all right because God's gonna provide, and it was a real like beyond faith where when you really let go, kind of become as a child and trust in God and say, I'm not in control, like small miracles happen, and I've seen thousands of those where it's just like there's something out there that we don't fully understand. You know what I mean? Like, and a good example is when you really let go and begin to trust in God. I would give people, like, without filming, it would always work when I wasn't filming it. Like, I would just be like, all right, God, guide me to someone who needs this. Here's like $50. And then literally within like 20 minutes, I would walk and I would know. And it would always be like a 3 to a 10x. And it was like, hey, God told me to send this to you. I don't know how I found you, like the Spirit told me to give this to you.
What do you mean a 3 to a 10x? Like more money?
Like $200, $300
to the next person?
Just ding, like a notification to my Venmo.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like things like that,
So real quick, where did the $10,000 come from?
Just a lot of the first viral video.
Okay, so it's viral video, and then there was a donation button somewhere.
Yeah, the Venmo.
Via your sister. Okay. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Beautiful also.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, hearing the so like hearing about the money you've brought in, right, from donations and stuff like that, it's just incredible to me. I didn't realize that there's so much giving happening, you know, and people
Yeah.
and these videos are a good way to connect with people and connect people almost peer to peer.
Yeah, we have months, you know, like my lowest months now, I'll do at least probably 100,000. We can get up to a 500,000 just me focusing on Instagram.
So okay, okay. So that was. It sounds like that was that's the beginning of Murph's Life. What is your foundation called?
Murph's Life.
Murph's Life Foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the beginning, and then it's just been going on since then. And has the primary funding just been from people donating?
Yeah, just from people donating.
Wow.
You know, I've had Kardashians donate. We've had
What?
people from like Bad Bunny's crew donate. We've had a lot of like from big celebrities to now corporate cash, and a lot of people will constantly donate to us. You know, we have like a pretty popular cable company that'll send us 50, 100, 200 grand every Christmas.
Whoa.
And they trust us because it's not just about showing what you do with the money, but we really do. We just focus on teaching people how to fish. So we you know, we find the families. They're really cool families. I make sure they all have a really my biggest thing is like two of them. One is, you know, we teach them how to fish. But my other thing too is I always look for people that are inspiring, that can inspire people. You know what I mean? Because you can give someone $1 million and then they'll just kind of fuck it away. But it's cool if you can find someone like, you know, like the Coconut Man, one of my favorite people I've done video, one of my most viral videos too, you know, hundreds of millions of views from all the videos uploaded of this guy we found in the Centro Histórico or by Santa Tecla here in El Salvador. And he's cool. He's just like, we don't have money, but we're happy. We're happy because we have God, you know? And it wasn't like, go to church, God, you know, how people talk about God and they get that voice. And it's just like they're quoting a pastor, you know what I mean? But it's genuine.
The holier than thou voice.
Yeah, it's just like genuine. You found that inner peace and that faith and that letting go, you know? And he was really cool. And he inspired like just like tens of thousands of comments. And, you know, I've even gotten like emails of people that have said, you know, like a really, really powerful one. And someone gave me an email once that said that they had a gun in their mouth and they were about to pull the trigger. And then they're like, something told me to go on TikTok. I don't use TikTok. And the first video that popped up was the story about, and then it was a story about one of the people that we helped. And that message is, you know, and they sent pictures of him and his two little girls and saying like, I'm doing a lot better now. I got therapy. If it wasn't for that person's message, you know? So that's for me is like, you know, they're kind of like the diamond in the rough. These people have really cool stories.
That's super interesting because were you involved with filmmaking or content creation at all before?
I mean, working at a marketing agency, I was always like really into social media, you know?
Yeah.
When YouTube started getting popular, I you know, I had a lot of friends that did YouTube videos. Coming from Utah, it was kind of a mecca for a lot of YouTube channels to grow. You know, one of my roommates was Loff. I don't know if you guys remember that kid. It was like the first YouTube pranks. So you do like the hand holding pranks or the elevator prank, touching kids' hands. We, you know, helped him film a lot of these, like the kissing prank, who go into the universities. He was like the really awkward kid who, you know, I can pull up a video. I'm sure you
I
guys
think
might
I remember that
recognize
guy. Did he do the one where he like stole a guy's girlfriend from a Ferrari or something?
Yeah, like that. All those videos, you know. So that's kind of like my background. Even like I used to grow weed pages on Instagram using bots, and then I'd flip them and sell them to dispensaries. So,
Interesting.
You know.
So you had a little history with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I just never really grew something for myself. It was always for other people.
Awesome.
So you've built an incredible amount of trust with people over the, I guess, what, 5 years now, 4 years? And people are sending you hundreds of thousands of dollars, no strings attached, because they trust you.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And what,
Yeah.
and so
it's amazing.
Yeah. What's this foundation? What can we go into your foundation, kind of the purpose, the mission behind it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's, you know, like I was saying before, we were doing the podcast, the dollar is losing a lot of its value. You know, we've lost like 20-25% of the value. And we've had quite a few donations that have came in from people like for tax write-off purposes, right? And so now I'm really, you know, and for me personally, like my everyone has their own belief in God. Mine is a very Christian, you know, it's I was, you know, pray in the name of Jesus Christ. And so for me, which I'm not a Christian foundation at all, but I'm just saying like this is how I kind of run my
These are,
foundations. I'm always like praying like, God, what do you want me to do with this money? You know, show me a person that I could do a video that might inspire someone. I'm always asking, like, that's kind of like the basis. And I felt kind of inspired this last few years to focus on farming for whatever reason. You know, I think, you know, we can look at what happened today, you know, all the bombings and shit going on. The world could easily go back in a very chaotic state, just like we were a few years ago. And for me, it's like, for me as a foundation, I don't want to just be that guy who fills up 20 baskets of carts of food and handing it out. Like, I want to have something that can constantly produce food. I want to have thousands of acres of gardens and chickens for producing eggs. You know, I eventually want to get into freeze drying. I want to be able to package food that'll last 20 years, you know, so we can really create, you know, the system that's able to help children, elderlies, and above all. And the cool thing about this is it creates jobs, you know. So we have 128 employees on our farm right now, and whether they're doing construction, gardening, pruning, you know, whatever, like that's the coolest thing. Like we're providing jobs. I think that should be the priority of almost any foundation, is how can you better that person's life for the long haul, you know? And I'm not saying it's more important than, like, every foundation can do something different that's beautiful, right? Like there's disasters and people just need to have food for a few weeks, you know, until they can start rebuilding their home. And that's cool, you know. I'm just saying for my mission, we're focused on,
and what brought you to farming?
it's just what I felt inspired to do.
Wow.
So you end up in El Salvador, you're here, and then you eventually bought, well, you said 40 acres?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? And so can you tell us about this whole operation? I know you're building like a grocery store, there's houses, there's farms. What is this all about? Is this through the foundation? I would just love to hear a big picture summary of.
Yeah, at the beginning, I didn't have my foundation legalized in El Salvador. Everything's the same thing as you, 501c3 in the States. And so anytime you buy a property here, it's just using your passport. We have a bank account here. We have our foundation is all registered and kind of connected to ours in the States. So now we've already transferred everything over. So everything is managed by our foundation, MURPHSLIFE. And yeah, it's 40 acres. We have a few properties too. We have some houses and things that we've purchased that I eventually want to use to turn into another women's shelter. We have 6 in South America. So we use it for like Venezuelans, Ecuadorians, Colombians, Peru. We have a program. We even work with the police. So we have like abandoned children, you know, sexually abused, physically abused. We have women who, the majority is like the husbands that try to kill the wives. This is very common when there's a lot of alcoholism in families.
Were you personally a part of building those women's shelters?
Yeah, we built it from the ground up.
And this is all just in the last few years?
Uh-huh.
So you've been traveling all over the place.
Yeah.
And doing all this.
We built schools, women's shelters, animal shelters.
And you're making content of all of it?
Yeah.
He's like Mr. Beast.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Except all packaged into one instead of having the entertainment and then the philanthropy and all that. It's like.
Yeah, this is what we do, you know?
So you built all of that and probably more that you haven't even mentioned. You're going to these places, you're raising the money to do it. And then now, are you still traveling to South America to work on other projects, or are you focused here now?
I mean, we have a feeding program. When Venezuela's, you know, kind of shit show went down, there was a lot of wildness going on for a little bit. A lot of, you know, protests and we have some employees that are Venezuelan, and so they're like, maybe we could do a fundraiser, and I think we did like 170,000, 180,000. Between 160, 180,000 within the first like day and a half, just through Instagram too, which is pretty wild. So things like that, right? Like I flew to the border of Venezuela and we got like giant, like last month, what was that? 2 months ago, we got big truckloads of food, and we set up a team with the Orthodox Greek Church and other foundations where I would like transfer money into their accounts in the States, and then they would have that to buy medicine, food. We were delivering it to hospitals. And then I had, like, you know, in the next week or two, I have to go back to Ecuador, where we have some of our women's shelters there, and I have to do a photo shoot. We're gonna film, do some documentary style shooting, and this will also be for publicity with our restaurant that we're building, our community, because this is just telling the story of the restaurant that we're building up in Los Naranjos that we're, kind of coined as Bitcoin Mountain, is you can go there, you can stay in our hotel, community, whatever you consume there, whether it's like fresh eggs, organic fruits and vegetables, you stay in the hotel and you know that it's supporting not only locals' jobs, but even these women's shelters and feeding programs. So it's just, I need to have that kind of story tell.
It's supporting local agriculture.
Yeah.
Right. Everything's probably coming from, or will be coming from, the farming operations.
Yeah. We want to grow. We want to grow everything. And this is like a first time. So I'm sure there'll be times where we'll sell out. And it's like, all right, we got to go to PriceSmart. We got to go to Super Selectos. We got to go to the local, which just get their stuff from Guatemala, But that's the purpose, is we want to figure this out, learn how to do it, and create a community where it's everything is vegetables and food and milk without pesticides, without, and it's funky because it's like, before when I heard that, I'm like, just a bunch of hippie shit. You know what I mean? But now it's just like we've become so accustomed to just poisoning ourselves. It's the norm. And if you want to think outside the box, or even too, it's like, you kind of think about what was that thing that just happened with the chicks here? What's it called? Miss Universe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
That was about
chicks.
was that about a year ago? Something like that.
But anytime people think about like Miss Universe, I think they always think about a few viral videos of where they ask them the question and they say world peace. You know what I mean? Like everyone kind of thinks of that, like this ditzy dumb girl, like world peace. But then as you get older, it's just like, kind of off subject, but I think like we think we're so advanced, as humans, we're so much better than we were like hundreds of years ago. Yet it's just like we're so violent. We're just like murdering and killing ourselves over earthly resources. And I don't know. So this is all kind of the culture that we're creating up on our Bitcoin mountain here, of a place where we can kind of like.
So kind of revert back towards a place where, we're building and we're thriving and existing in the natural state of things, instead of working kind of against the grain, against ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're working more to uplift each other up, and we're focused on those things that actually, go to the betterment of humanity. Sounds like.
Yeah.
What is the relationship with Bitcoin, or what brought you to calling it Bitcoin Mansion, or excuse me, Bitcoin Mountain?
Bitcoin Mountain. It's the whole reason why we got it was just seeing how much inflation was going on right around the world, and how much we're losing just from how much money is being printed, right? Whether it's wars or what's it called? Stipend checks, from welfare checks to whatever. It's like, I think that's the kind of the cool thing about Bitcoin, right? Is there's a limited amount. You can't just overprint. You can't inflate. So the concept of Bitcoin is really cool.
It's like a safe haven.
And and so with us right now, it's like, I think everyone was kind of into Bitcoin when it had that first, what is it, like 2017? A lot of people lost money. They pulled out too early. But if you really look at the trends and you see it continuously rising, it's for us, we are creating with our organization, we're creating a retirement plan. And so it's, when people get paid, it just goes into kind of a cold wallet where they can't touch it for 5 years. So when you work for the foundation, you're a part of the community, which is all locals, right? And these are people that, besides our management, we have management who work at large restaurants, large hotels that came over that are locally. But for the most part, like our gardeners, our construction workers, everyone who's really a part of this, ones who take care of the animals, they live in champitas, like these plastic dirt floor huts. They can't afford medicine. A lot of them were making $75 biweekly, which is a common pay up in the mountains. And so it's wild because a lot of them can only send their eldest child to school. When you live up in the mountains, it's $1 for them to go on those little, those flatbed trucks that people ride on here. Everyone's like 50 people in the back.
Yep.
So it's $1 there and back. So imagine making $75 biweekly and you got 5 kids. It's like that, you can't do that. You're not gonna have any money for food, electricity, water. So the idea with this is, we can create a system where they get a decent pay, and then we're setting up a pay scale right now once we open up, where it'll start from 5% and go all the way up to 25%. So if we hit this goal, everyone's going to receive their own ownership bonus. and that's going to go into Bitcoin. And you can pull it out the first year, but you're going to be dinged 70%, and you'll be dinged 60, 50, 40, and then you can have 100% of it. So this is kind of our thing now, where we want to do the long haul. You know, how can we take an entire community? You know, we have like 70 houses that live around our farm and little champitas on the other side of the highway. So the other side of the highway is where they live. That's where we're building a school with the Minister of Education. One of the coolest properties in the whole country. Tippy top, looks the ocean, it's so badass, this property. But how can we in 5 years come back and say, if it does go parabolic, you know what I mean? How fucking cool would it be if everyone could build their own brick house, where it's not, hey, here's some free money, here's some free houses. Like charity's going to come in and, you know what I mean? But you built this. You learned about business, you learned about patience, you learned about, you know, and for anyone saying, well, what if Bitcoin goes to shit? What if we fucking go into nuclear war with everything going on right now? We don't know. You know, it doesn't mean everyone should just drop out of school. Everyone should just, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people do have that mentality of, you know, especially like some Christians, you know, like that I've chatted with, that are like hardcore Christians. They're like, well, it doesn't matter because the Bible says, you know, Armageddon and everything's going to go to hell anyway. But like, what kind of like a cop out, you know, of like, let's just not do anything. You know what I mean?
The way I see it is that, you know, we have this window of opportunity. It's apparent, it's obvious, you know, to try big things, to try new things, right? We have the technology and we have the means and we have the resources available to try these things.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, why wouldn't you? Like, even if there's a chance of it failing, like the window of opportunity is there, and the return on that effort, I feel like could be big. And like for you, from what I hear, or what I'm interpreting, is like we have a way of like sidestepping this traditional like financial system and actually put the power back in the hands of people and show them the value of saving with a currency that appreciates over time, that can't be deflated away, right? And so it's like we can like leapfrog this whole, you know, old paradigm and put, you know, people, everyday people on an even playing field with you know, Bitcoin as almost a retirement vehicle for them. And then also it, you know, my impression here in El Salvador is they gone through a lot of hard times, and you know, people were basically living to survive, and in that culture, savings is not really a thing because you're just living for the next, right?
Yeah.
And so, but savings can add so much more to your life. And so it's just a culture that needs to be developed, right? It needs to be taught. And Bitcoin and allowing people to save their retirement and see what actual savings can do for them is a way to do that. It's a way of reversing the harmful effects of, you know, whatever circumstances that occurred here, and also the fiat paradigm as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree, man. I mean, it's like if we could go back in time when, you know, the break of internet coming out, or you know, invest in Google stocks or any of these major like technological companies that came out, you know, in the early 90s, early 2000s. It's kind of the same thing, but I think we can still realize that we're still at that that baby phase. You know, there's still a lot of opportunity, and you know, I mean, I think that's what we're all kind of doing down here, is we're just trying. You know, what else could we be doing? We could be living in our home countries, just, you know, fucking around, drinking, working a normal 9 to 5, but we're trying to do something cool. And you know, and I as you guys, I see a vision. I can see this as being a currency that will be adopted worldwide, and we can see that now too. You know, from, you know, me being on platforms, it's like now it's really being adopted by PayPal, by Cash App, by Venmo, where you can now purchase into that, more stores. It's really cool. You know, it's the future. No matter if people don't like it or not, you know, it's the future. Sorry to cut you off there too. And I'll say this too. A lot of people think it's a scam. Even my wife, for example, she's, you know, doesn't have any she's never really studied about Bitcoin, but we had, you know, for me it was a learning lesson, but you know, we kind of had a bad experience, which has really nothing to do with Bitcoin. You know, like there's a lot of platforms there's a lot of scams, you know, and then all of a sudden everyone's money disappears. There's a lot of I won't mention names, you know, a pretty big political situation here, you know, where someone eventually died, you know, but I don't know. It's I don't have to talk about that, but it was someone who kind of led us into something that turned into a scam, and you know,
Well,
that's the reason why my
so that's the thing over here, right? Like Bitcoin, there's, as Max Kaiser likes to say, I don't know if I'm going to say it exactly right, but it's basically people like to cloak themselves in the orange color, and
yeah,
so a lot of scammers will will hide behind the promise that Bitcoin offers, and so yeah, it can attract a lot of scammers and bad actors and stuff like that. But if you look at objectively at the underlying technology, and you look at you know the transformation that can occur by a society, by a people adopting a money, a currency, which is like a vehicle for your life force, right? So
yeah,
it's your time, your energy, capitalized, right? And so if you look at that objectively, there's so many benefits that Bitcoin provides to society, and yeah, I think we're going to start to see the fruits of that over here in El Salvador. And I think
yeah,
like, you know, what you're doing, I've heard this also from other people as well. It's like now Bitcoin offers an easy way for people to create retirement plans. This is the second business I've heard, or the second organization I heard trying to do this over here. So it's pretty cool and it's pretty promising. And you know, like it's going to be interesting how everything pans out over here. But like, there's people trying cool stuff, and I think you're one of them.
yeah. I
Yeah.
appreciate that, man.
I think in regards to your wife, this one little quick point is that this is where Bitcoin education really comes in. It's kind of like with the FTX crash a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
People were like blaming Bitcoin. Or the government was trying to blame Bitcoin. It was like,
Yeah.
no, this is like, you know, it's just a misunderstanding. It's ignorance of what Bitcoin is, because the FTX crash is just an example of more fiat structures crumbling when you're centralized and you're doing things the fiat way. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin, and they just lump it in there. When you understand Bitcoin, you realize that, yeah, you can cloak yourself in the orange, but the scam is never Bitcoin itself. It's just human actors on top of it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the same thing, you know. This country is it's a very religious country, right? Pretty predominantly, what's that word?
Predominantly
Catholic, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing. You could look at like Christianity, right? The basis of Christianity is Christ. But I'll use as an example some of the people that we've helped. You know, we've helped a family here. You know, mom died of cancer, and they got a new home, a new business. Like, you know, they won the freaking jackpot on this one. We got a lot of donations, and we spent it on them. And unfortunately, the dad kind of lost his mind and ended up a little girl, you know, kind of being basically sold off to a pastor who was sexually molested her, who's in prison now, you know. And using that, right? A lot of people, which I'm learning in my life, we shouldn't look at any human being as our rock. Like, if I'm going to believe in Bitcoin, I'm only going to follow, say, like a Max Kaiser or anyone else. Because as soon as someone does that, even like religious figures, if you're religious, don't look at that person as that top. You know what I mean? Because easily, as soon as they do something, everyone's faith in it is just like smashed to shit, you know?
Well, this is what we were talking about the other day with morality being built into the code of Bitcoin and the idea of the network state. Do you want to run through that real quick, Michael? I think it's a great time.
Well, yeah, the basic idea is that where we found our morality before was from God, or, you know, where society or civilization got their morality was from God. I was a good person because I was commanded by God, and if not, I would be judged one day.
Going to hell.
Yeah. And then it moved on to the state, right? Like Nietzsche declared that you know, God is dead, and the reason is because people were moving away from the faith and putting their faith into the state, into government, and that's where they got their morality from. People didn't steal or they didn't do things because the state would punish them. And now we're moving to this world where, you know, it's the rules of the game, the morality now come from the actual algorithm itself, or the actual system itself. Like with Bitcoin, it has cryptography, which doesn't allow you to steal like people's private keys. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit of a high level conversation, but the basic point is that we're moving into a world where, like, you know, certain morality, certain principles are embedded into the fabric of you know, of the technology that we use.
We're putting our faith in the network now.
Yeah.
Really trusting that. And then like to your point is like, the more you put your faith that other humans are your rocks. Well, humans are always going to mess up.
Yeah.
Humans always fuck up. It's just part of being human. It's just a question of intention, right? But if there's going to be a human attachment to that other human, and then an emotional rebound, I guess, a reaction that affects everything else, then that's how we learn. And that's how we start to shift into, well, what if we don't have to trust humans anymore, or don't trust, verify?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, because I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus Christ. I'm a follower of our Lord and Savior. And so, you know, the way I see it is that these protocols, these systems, these technologies, I think they can be divinely inspired, right? Divinely inspired to the point where Christian ethics and values are embedded into the Bitcoin code, you know? So at the top of my hierarchy, I still have the Christian God, but I see him working through the protocol. Like, I see how it changes people. I see how it makes people act. I see how it gets people to reflect and think deeply. And then I see how it can carry our spirit from one person to another. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is very much aligned with Christian ethics and Christian morality. So it's interesting. It's interesting, topic I haven't talked about, but there is so much overlap, and that's why I think that there is a big Christian faction in the Bitcoin space.
Well, and I think also, if you start at if we imagine we make a hierarchy here, first you have religion, then you have like politics. It bleeds down into politics then with like the proof of work protocol, because then it's like you no longer want to accept handouts. It's like once Bitcoin takes over, you're like, once that operating system takes over, first, you have that can't steal, that ethical morality at the top, and then it goes into, well, wait a minute, like, I don't want handouts from the state. Like, I want to work for what I consume, or I want to work for my living. And then
it's kind of like what Aaron was saying here in terms of like, you know, well, I don't know if you actually said it on this podcast, or I might have heard you somewhere else, and that might be a good segue into it. But, you know, the idea of farming and having to learn patience and having that transform you as an individual, as a human being. Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about that, because I see a lot of overlap with that in Bitcoin as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a concept that, I mean, no matter what you believe in, we're here on this earth, you know, and it's, I think, to learn. You know what I mean? We come here to learn, whether we come here once or we're reborn, you know. It's kind of a school for us to just become better humans.
Yep.
You know what I mean? To find our true highest potential, you know, our soul's true potential. So with anything that takes time, with anything that takes repetition, with anything that takes like making mistakes and then kind of evaluating, making a mistake and then reevaluate, you know. And a lot of people kind of get, fuck, you know, religion when they hear the word repentance. But to me, that's real repentance, you know, especially now that I'm a father, I have my child, you know, I have my wife. It's like, if I didn't, for me personally, right? Like, there's so many times where sometimes will yell, you know, and in front of that child. And then later when you're in the shower, when you're in quiet time, it's like, oh, that was like a very powerful mistake that I made, that was just like screaming at pure innocence. What a sponge who absorbed that little bit of energy, you know, that came off of me. And so for me, it's like, okay, that's kind of my time where I enjoy to talk to God. And that's my repentance. So it's like, okay, I repent, and not in a shameful way, like, oh, fuck, I'm a piece of shit, which is what a lot of I think kind of Christians do. And it's just, shame is like the very lowest thing that you can bring yourself to. But it's a real, you feel that you made that mistake, and you want to go back and sometimes you really do need that. Well, you do need that divine intervention, that divine. Sometimes we'll realize like, wow, how did I grow out of that? How did I heal from that? You know, you can't do that. You're like, for example, I look at just in a few years, you know, I basically had nothing. And before that too, you know, we were doing music events, and, you know, we lost like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'll use this as an example. In Las Vegas, we did an event. We were like selling the clothes for like Marshmello and Jaws and all the electronic musicians. And at the last minute, they moved. This will kind of go back to the gardening thing, right? But they moved our convention center. So we had like all this, like millions of dollars with a product. No one went to it because we already did the publicity of where like the shop's going to be during EDC. And just totally lost our shit, you know? And man, where am I going with this?
You were getting back to farming somehow. You
Yeah,
lost some money, I think.
You know, but like making it did make sense in my brain, but you know, it's yeah, you sometimes you really gotta the fuck up to be able to get to that next.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So this is something that I've learned, and it's interesting. I just heard something on this today, but like in all things, like God works for the good, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like a lot of these hardships, a lot of these trials, a lot of these mistakes that we've made, they're really God like nudging us to become better. And like true repentance is not like that shame, but it's actually the transformation that occurs from the Holy Spirit working within you, pushing you to get better, you know, pushing you to reflect and then overcome that you know, that sin that overtook you, you know. And so
it's a beautiful process if you allow it. I think one of the biggest things as humans is we need to always make sure to know that we are prideful, right? Because as soon as you say you allow that pride to come in, you know, that's where you get real dictators. You know what I mean? Or real narcissistic behavior, and this is kind of a cool thing back with Bitcoin is the visibility, you know, that can happen with even politicians. Like if the visibility of, oh, why did you go and spend this money here at a strip club? Or why did you have to go and spend a $20,000 plane ticket instead of you know what I mean? If that could be the case, you know, like true visibility, it would really, you know, even politicians with their own currency, like I can't overinflate, I can't you know,
that's interesting. It adds accountability. That's another transformation that would occur to society is accountability, right? Just because, like you said, the ledger is visible, it's transparent. People can see what's going on. People can see when there's a spend. So there's some aspect of that where it's like, okay, we can restore accountability, especially to public officials who are supposed to be handling the public's money and who are supposed to be transparent.
Yeah.
Imagine
that.
I kind of know where I was going with that. That wasn't that long ago. You know what I mean? This wasn't that long ago where it was just like, shit, we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had a DUI. You know, they repoed my car, like that kind of rock bottom. You know what I mean? Like there was a point where I was like staying in like beautiful homes before, like in my early 20s. You know, like having success with throwing my like parties to working in this side of the marketing and then as soon as that like rock bottom, it was like true rock bottom where I was sleeping with one of my friends. I remember I was like sleeping on his dirty clothes and he was shooting up heroin. And I would just kind of like watch him shoot up heroin. And, you know, it wasn't my drug, but I would just watch and see blood squirt all over the bathtub. And, you know what I mean? And just like feel and see his friends come over and I just like chill there and feel that true dark spirit of addiction. And rock bottom, like that is the spirit of darkness. When you're watching people shoot up and blood squirt, you're just like, you know, seeing people totally just possessed out of their minds, say crazy shit. To now, this is what I was getting with that. To now, it's just like I never went to college. I never, you know, and the difference now is before I was like, I can make your money back as a mark. You know, they're talking to clients like this. Yeah, well, you give us a $20,000 retainer and we'll fucking rock your brand. We'll rock this. You're really believing that, you know, like I can do this. I you know.
Sounds like us at Sovereignty Studios.
Yeah. I'm just talking for myself, you know.
Yeah.
and I had to hit that to be like, fuck, I can't do anything. You know, God can give me cancer and just take my life away right now. This will be my last breath. I had to get to that in order to now, just within a small amount of years, you know, 2020, I had a couple bucks to my name. So now we have around the world, you know, in Ecuador, we have maybe like 240, 250 acres of like really good farmland. We built cabins for tourism. We're super badass. We have like hiking trails, fruit, cacao.
That's all going on in Ecuador?
Yeah, that's in Ecuador.
Wait, so before we go on to something else,
houses, $8 million worth of property in El Salvador.
And this is all from the fundraising, like through Venmo and stuff, and your charity, like.
Yeah, this is from God. No matter what, for me, you know, it's just people have been touched, but there's no way that someone with no education, you know what I mean, can go from that, pay off their debts, you know, to this within like 3-4 years. You know.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Mike?
No, yeah, he wrapped it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, what is your administration team like? Because I'm just imagining, even if I had millions of dollars in 4 years, how would I do all these things you're talking about? Just like the manpower, the brain, like retirement plans for my employees, like all this stuff. You must have an excellent team.
Yeah, an exhausted team. They're like, no more ideas, dude. No more ideas.
So you just have the idea, you make a few videos, like we're doing this now.
Yeah, pretty much. We raise the cash and then we just do it. That's one of my things is there's a lot of bureaucracy. Whenever you have an idea, if you have that idea and you feel that energy, especially if you have the resources, it's just like for me now, it's just like I don't allow that. I got into that habit of, we have a couple hundred builds now with all these years, like from animal shelters to schools to a lot of houses. So
Wow.
we did a $500,000 like Airbnb project from the ground up construction in Oaxaca, just super badass. Like fucking A. We took these indigenous families making $5 a day selling their artisanal ice cream, just making like $150 selling to these gringo tourists, and then we bought them like 4-wheelers and motorcycles and rented that shit out for $50, 24 hours, leave your passport,
So you
Someone
basically gave
making-
them, you helped them create businesses.
Yeah. And so basically kind of with the construction is like we raise the funds, and if I'm really like cranking it right now, I'm not doing a lot of fundraising because we're building this. But normally it's we'll do a video and when it's going, we usually raise around $70,000 within 24 hours. And that's just for construction, right? So I'm looking, okay, they own their own land. So boom, like let's go find our main guy who can, okay, give me a team. We start tomorrow. We already have kind of our blueprints of what our houses after so many builds, 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1-story. And so sometimes we'll be working on 7 construction projects at the same time, hire everyone out, do more fundraisers. And for me, it's like whenever we do a GoFundMe, a lot of people think in scarcity or allow their greed to come in. And for me, I've always like, even with my team, like, no, we don't have to do that. It's like we raise that now on our GoFundMe. It's like we spend it. You know what I mean? Like we effing spend that, and that's been a really huge blessing in return. Not being able to, because I know like a lot of influencers will raise a lot of money, and it's just like all of a sudden like, oh, how'd you get that? $200,000 car and a new apartment, and you know what I mean?
I had an NFT set, bro.
Yeah. And I'm not talking to smack on anyone. This is the only reason why I'm saying is I just think it's been a big blessing, and the trust why people have donated serious money now, and all the little donations that have added up for us to be able to do something larger. We started with a little food cart, we built little restaurants, we built up to semi trucks, and we've helped out neighborhoods for building tourism packages or like really tourism, painting hundreds of houses, fixing all the roofs, building mini stores, building food parks where we, through art brings tourism is another thing. Done some really cool projects with like TNT here, but it's kind of out of the blue there.
TNT like dynamite.
The one of the coolest, really famous, one of the best like graffiti artists.
Awesome.
Is from El Salvador.
Interesting.
Really, really famous. You probably see him all over the place. Like really professional.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
That's from him. His name is TNT. On Instagram is really cool.
Oh, okay, not dynamite. So one thing, when you were first getting the money in your donations, I'm just like we mentioned, you're building trust earlier.
Yeah.
And so I see it like it happened in almost like 2 phases. One is you as a human, like you were receiving that money and you had the wherewithal to give it away. Like obviously you were eating, right?
Yeah.
And you were making sure you were covered, but were you still living in a towel closet when that $10,000 came in? Or you probably weren't going out and renting a $8,000 apartment and saying, oh, I need this so I can keep my charity videos going.
No, we stayed in really shitty hostels, Airbnbs that were pretty cheap, like maybe $150 a month, $200 a month. And this is like right as this is kind of growing. I met my girl. We have a child now, and we were staying really, really cheap. We only ate street food, and we didn't pay ourselves for the first 3 years. It was literally just until we had a child, and then she kind of had a mental breakdown, as she should have. She's like, what the fuck are we doing? In tears. And it was a huge wake up for me. She's like, we give everyone houses, and your family's still poor. My family's poor. I'm constantly getting like diarrhea from just eating this street food. Like we got bed bugs, we got lice, like all bit up in these, we don't get any sleep because when you go to a cheap hotel, you get the thin pillows. I like the thick pillows, you know.
Yeah.
You got to have an extra pillow put in your legs. For me, I like to sleep, you know.
Yeah.
And we didn't take care of that. And she's like, now we have a child. When the baby was already born, we weren't paying ourselves. She's like, we have nothing. And she's like, if you die, you know, worst case scenario, I'm not going to receive anything for the child that you left me. And so now what I do is I pay myself $6,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter if I make 100,000, doesn't matter if I make $500,000. That's what we're doing right now. Is, you know, and here in El Salvador, you can live amazing on $6,000 a month. You know, we live in a beautiful apartment. We can eat out whenever we want. We're saving up to build a house on a small piece of land that we're gonna use, that we're gonna buy with our own money, and just kind of go from there. But it's another thing too, where it's like, I know God will really provide, and we want to soon create another business, but it'll be like kind of like a Cotopaxi, for profit, and then a percentage will go towards. And we have a couple ideas, whether we do like private gated communities, and then that's kind of what we're thinking right now. We have a lot of people in the Bitcoin space who want to invest, and a lot of people have came to us like, that would add up to millions of dollars. What can we do? And so that's kind of an idea. Like maybe we could do that, where we could build a large, like, and that would be the business side, right? Let's buy up 50 to 100 acres. You know, I've done a lot of like emails to test. We have like 600-700 people that want to spend $50,000 for a lot to build a home. They have the cash ready, you know, so that could be another one. And then another one we want to do is to do a coffee brand, you know, kind of like the Bean of Fire. We want to do a coffee brand where it would go door to door to our subscribers. We have like 11 million, you know, and a solid like 800,000 are like hardcore.
Can I ask you something? Do you think El Salvador is a good place to bring your entrepreneurial spirit and build these businesses?
Yeah, 1000% right now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could do it anywhere. You can make money in any country, even war-torn countries, selling bullets and bombs. You know what I mean? Selling masks during. You can find opportunity, whether it's good, not so good. You know what I mean? There's ways to make money in any economy, any place. You know, we've seen that. But I love El Salvador because there's a couple of reasons why. One, and now that I have a child, you know, our daughters, we went to Chuck E. Cheese, and how cool is it that I don't have to have a bodyguard anymore? Before I had to walk with bodyguards here. When our TikTok was really, really viral, and you know, that's all I was focusing on. We had people follow us because I had to go to ATMs every single day, pull out $500. That's the only way I could get money, is going to ATMs.
And this is after the gangs.
This is during the gangs.
It's
Yeah.
during still.
Yeah, during the gangs, I had guns pointed at me, and all over the country. I've been in like shootouts in Brazil, like hiding behind like things where bullets are flying.
Good
It's
Lord.
pretty crazy, you know. Seen people like murdered like 10 feet in front of me. A lot of the crazy shit was in Brazil. But now that I have a daughter, it's like I don't have to live this adrenaline rush life anymore. I want my daughter to have a dad. I want to be able to create a community for her if she chooses, you know, to be a part of. And El Salvador has that security. And the second thing is, this is kind of my analogy of it. I think everyone goes through a health crisis, right? Like God always allows us to go through a disease, whether it might be cancer, or maybe severe pains, or a blindness, or whatever. I think that comes from us to really like analyze something that we're not healing in our life, you know, and that can be a heavy burden, you know. And maybe you guys remember the times where it doesn't have to be a sickness, where you're just up all night with this problem that seems endless, and it can turn into hopelessness, you know. Just think of that. Like maybe your mom was going through cancer, or someone was dying, or like that hardest moment in your life where you just felt like shit. Maybe it was after a divorce or whatever. And then remember the moment where it was just kind of like healed, you know, where that was like weight was lifted off your shoulders. I think the entire country had a cancer, and that was everyone here has a cousin who was raped, who was murdered, and their story, I've interviewed thousands of people, like the stories are insane about child molestation, like fucked up shit. You know what I mean? Like I've seen people with like no arms, they telling the story and they freeze up and they start like grown men start crying. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to tell me about this. Just talking about like, oh, you didn't pay your renta. What is that? Your hey, give me money for your little business. What is that called? Your extortion.
Your kickback.
You know,
Yeah.
so now we're gonna rape your 3-year-old daughter in front of you, your 3-year-old daughter in front of
Wow.
you, like that kind of dirty shit. You know what I mean?
Your 3-year-old daughter in front of you.
This is some crazy gang stories that I've heard, and so this is what I'm going with. Like, now imagine everyone has healed at the same time. The cancer is gone, and a lot of people are like, I don't know what it is. It's like this energy, this, you know. It
Yeah,
really
people
is.
feel liberated over here.
That cancer is gone, and what a beautiful spirit to be around. Not just the security, but now it's like this energy of like, now let's move forward. Let's, you know.
Wow, that's a great way to describe it. It's an overlap too that I noticed. Like with Bitcoin, they have a certain level of optimism and energy because they see the world now through a different lens, and they have hope, right? Like Michael Saylor famously says, like Bitcoin is hope. And so there's this spirit and this optimism there with them. And then you couple that with the spirit and optimism that the El Salvadoran people have now that they're liberated from this like oppressive, demonic, satanic force that was here. And yeah, there's an energy here like I've never felt before.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I enjoy that, you know.
So another thing that I find pretty interesting here is the people, like coming across people like yourself. So the people that, you know, the policies here are attracting, right? Like Max Kaiser, you're here. Like there's all these interesting people here. And I feel like when you have that concentration of people that think outside the box and who will actually want to put action to their thoughts and to their words, like cool things can transpire. Like, have you noticed that?
Yeah. It's but I think you look in you look in your life, and anything like anytime you've like made a good amount of money, or you've created something really creative, or even like everyone has some type of form of a viral post, right? Where you just kind of like felt so inspired and you typed something on Facebook 5 years ago and you're like, wow, that was like my most shared, liked post. Like anytime you have something, there's always some type of like emotion that is inside of you, right? Something that pushes you to be able to create something that turns into what it is. And so there is definitely, you know what I mean? Like there is that creative energy here. And the more people that are around this, the only thing that I think people have to be careful is it always attracts a lot of sharks. It attracts a lot of wolves, you know? And that's kind of what we're seeing too in the real estate is just a lot of greed and a lot of lies, you know? Me working in a lot of real estate here, it's sad to see how many people, you know, it's kind of like what I've dealt with multiple times of I'm a pastor and then start talking like a pastor. Real damn pastors, you know, that a lot of people look up to. This is the price, and I promise I'm a man of God. I'm not here to make money. The rich man, it's harder for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven than a camel through the needle of I don't know what, you know what I mean? Like that whole, like, how dare you not believe me? God called me to be a pastor. So if God calls me, then how dare you look at me like this? And then it's like, you know, I might know someone who owns a bank and they'll be like, oh yeah, the loan is this. I'm like, you fucking liar. You fucking liar, you piece of shit. You know, and is my moment now to learn humility and to learn like slap on the cheek, slap on the other one. But it's sad to see that it's kind of hard to believe, you know? So I think in these times, we need to learn discernment, patience. Don't go with the first deal. Really look into, if you're going to come here, really like search, really look and with good intention. Like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? Is it going to benefit the people? Is it going to benefit the people surrounding it? And for the most part, it's a lot of Salvadorans who've made money in California. Other states are coming here now, young, hungry. They want to do something cool. They see all the money that's being made in real estate and in tourism. And just to remember that, you know, your cousins and your family, and there are people here that are making $75 biweekly. And if we want to create a society that flourishes, it's not about, I need to fucking work my way up so I'm the 0.01%. You know, and I don't care about anything else until I'm there, you know. how can we create a business? How can we create something where everyone can kind of eat? And I don't mean that in like this very socialistic communist sense, because I'm all about business. You know what I mean?
Capitalism.
I'm all about, yeah, I'm all about that, you know? But it just goes to, you have to be like, for capitalism to work, how a lot of people envision it, the capitalist mindset has to have those morals, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, it has to be
Um,
constrained by some type of ethical standards, right? And so it's like attracting those people here with that vision, with those principles is a big deal.
And it is interesting to think about if those ethical standards could be kind of ingrained into a country in the way it governs itself.
Well, it starts at the top with the leader, right? Bukele.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal. Like it's a huge signal to
But
the
it's
rest.
not permanent.
It's not permanent, but it can set the tone for a culture. I mean, Bukele 10 years here, you know, that's a whole generation that grows up with him as an example of a leader and who to emulate and who to follow as far as like the standards for their ethical bounds, you know, besides God itself, right? Like you know, having that hierarchy or having that perceived hierarchy, I don't even know what to call it, but like just having leadership in general be esteemed is a big deal.
Yeah, well, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, though. So you have the leadership to set examples, but they still could mess up. They still could flub up and something happens. So
Scandals, stuff like that.
yeah, so I'm just imagining those constraints we're talking about, the ethical morality stuff that's just kind of built in where it doesn't matter if the leader fucks up, for example,
Yeah.
because that's still all going to be built into the capitalism happening in the country. It's interesting to think about. I've never thought about that before.
Oh, I got a good book for you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The Starfish and the Spider. I was just saying.
Oh, yeah, it's on the reading list.
Yeah, it talks about that. It talks about decentralized leadership, and if one leader goes down, the whole organism itself still can sustain itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. But anyways, that's off topic. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's still a cool topic for, I think people need to really focus on more. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of if you have a faith in God, don't have your basis on the pastor.
Yeah.
Because as soon as that pastor, you know, starts cheating on his wife, oh my gosh, I'm an atheist, or I don't know what to believe anymore. And you kind of go through chaos. And a lot of times these are the people that fall into heavy addictions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? You've seen, just talking to you, it seems like you've seen a lot of crazy stuff in your life. And
Yeah.
how do you handle that like psychologically, right? To see the darkness, see the evil, see the depths of despair that humans can go to and still maintain your sanity and still want to push forward and be, you know, a positive force in this world.
For me, I mean, I have to, I've really healed from anxiety. You know, I had my dad took a fuck ton of Xanax, me growing up, always had his leg shaking, boom, 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 boom. And then I started getting some heavy anxiety from my drinking, you know, like major panic attacks. Like 80% of my day, I was like, you know what I mean? At one point, especially when I sobered up, it was really hard. So everyone's gonna go through, at one point or not, you're gonna get fucked over by someone, and it might be family, and it might not. You know what I mean? But or some shit's gonna come to you, and it's really gonna stretch your soul. And again, I think you have to really be grounded that this is a school. We come here for our souls to be stretched. You know, we need to be stretched in order to become, you know, to realize who we are, our true potential. And you know, for me, like I have to little things like this. What helps me with my anxiety and my fears and my doubts, and because anytime you're doing something, you always get that fear of like, the fuck am I doing? What if I fail? What if all of that shit will come at you, you know? And if you allow that, it really will, you know, put a stifle. It really kind of ruin your goals, you know? So for me, like the very, very important things are, of course I can go like prayer, fasting, which is, you know, number one, we know that already. But for me, one of the most important things is I have to like go for a walk for 30 minutes in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I'm on the treadmill and I'm walking for 30 minutes and I'm listening to an audible book, you know, something. And then I'll do like 10 minutes of like arms and then chest or shoulders, you know what I mean? And I just have to do that. And not only that, I do it like a thing. I've read this cool book about the depression cure, about how this guy studied indigenous communities like in Australia and other countries, of saying that like 2/3 of Americans think they'll go through like depression or anxiety. And he took these people is like I'm totally screwing up the numbers, but it's like 1 in 4,000 people should have anxiety, or depression. Uh, and basically it goes through the lack of omega-3s. And omega-3s are one of the most important things that we need to consume. So I've been consuming a lot of that. Totally changed my life. Like I'm just popping like fish oils. I always got the fish burps, but it really helps my sleep so much. Like good minerals, good like getting like quality minerals, Um, and I don't follow the best diet. You guys could tell that, you know what I mean? The candy demon comes out at night. You know what I mean? But just by having this, and kind of like looking at our food, which goes back to why I'm really into the farming now, is we have so much omega-6s. So you took these indigenous people, into Sydney and from the Amazon people, and then they start eating the diet, of everything like the fried vegetable oils, and now creating these depressions and anxieties and mental issues is all with the lack of omega-3s, that our brains are
Wow.
meant to have a lot of omega-3s. And before we used to eat fish and the fish was natural, but now our meat, our wild game was omega-3s, they would get it from the plants. But now all of our fish eats balanceada. What is that called? Like the grains, but it's all corn based.
Mhm.
The animals are fattened up with like corn, and all of the fats that we're getting is pumped. All of our proteins are being pumped with omega-6s to fatten them
Mm.
up. On top of that, all of the pesticides and the chemicals. And it's kind of sad because a lot of people come here and they go, wow, the food just tastes so much better. Oh, the food, da da da, da. And it's, now I've really been getting into this. It's like, there's actually not as many regulations. And these people are just like fucking spraying so many chemicals on this food and hormones and everything to make it as big as possible, to make as much money, to produce as much, vegetables as possible. So it's just like in the States, we don't have the best food here. And, I mean, there's places you can go in markets, a little bit easier access, but the majority of the stuff sold in stores and that we purchase from Guatemala is not the healthiest, and this is the same in all the other countries that I was living in. So really focusing on diet, which is why I think it's important, like, Bitcoin Mountain. I want to have that as a part of the culture where can we learn how to focus on restoring soil, you know? Like,
Yeah, that's gonna be so can we go into that your hotel that you're building there? So you got a farm and then you got a like kind of a hotel cafe right in the middle of that.
yeah, this is kind of the hub. So it's pretty large. In total is about a $3 million project from the school across the street that you can see from the restaurant. We like kind of cut the trees so you can see it, the storytelling in that. But it's a really large 2-story restaurant, and then we'll have like a big balcony. We worked for about 2.5 years on our terraces, doing kind of like Bali style terraces, and then every row has a different fruit tree. So it's kind of like a cool experience. Like, oh wow, these are all of my favorite fruits from like Brazil. We got the trees. It took us forever to find all the different kind of fruit trees. We have like 80 different kind of fruits. Um, and then on the one floor, it's kind of like a coffee shop. We have a bar downstairs. We're building a really big bar, like an outdoor, no roof. We're putting in the gas right now to have kind of like that community. You can sit around like a big sunken outdoor couch for like 50 people. And that's kind of the base. This is the community, sit around the fire, see the volcano, the ocean at night. It's really cool. Um, we have our corner store, grocery store, where we want to sell like organic grass-fed beef, butters. And then on the top, we have the Elon Musk internet. We're building kind of like a workspace where anyone who wants to come and get away, they'll have a beautiful view. You can work on your laptop, tons of plugins everywhere. Building a gym, and I still haven't purchased the gym equipment yet. If anyone listening, they want to sponsor the gym, we have that too. We have companies that have sponsored different hotel rooms. We'll just put their thing there, and it's a tax write-off. But yeah, so we're gonna make a gym. We're building a sauna, spa. It's basically everything that I've like really enjoyed staying at cool places around the
Sure.
world. We're kind of like putting into one. So this is the hub, and then the idea is we can build more. You know, like a pharmacy, a doctor's office, a dentist's
So a
office.
whole village basically.
People can kind of live around there, and then yeah, and it works with the people. you know, and then we kind of have that basis of if you start something, you don't have to do that model, but this is what we're doing. Like 20% can go back into, you know, into the workers to make sure that they can leave their shacks and really be a part of it, you know?
That's what first came to mind. It's like you're saying you're going to sell organic produce and grass-fed beef, but it sounds like you're not going to price the local people out of that. Like they're going to be part of the local economy to be able to afford that as well.
Yeah. I have no idea what the exact prices are because we've never done this. We're
Yeah,
just
right.
building it and we need to see like the numbers. So I have no idea what we're going to price it at. But then I'm excited about that. Like, how can we be able to pay everyone well
Well enough to eat well,
and
right?
still be able to set aside at least like 20-30 bucks for every employee to put in Bitcoin that they can't touch? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what are the prices going to be? I don't know what that looks like yet.
And so this is all you're just learning as you go,
Yeah.
following your intuition, and doing what feels right and doing what you feel called to do, and things have just been working out. Is that kind of that's the summary I get from listening to you?
Beyond working out,
Yeah.
thriving, and
Yeah, there's always fires to be put out. There's always, like issues, but it's flowing really well. It's really flowing. And for me, it's just, kind of keeping God at the center
Yep.
and constantly just, making it not about yourself. That's the hardest thing. And for me, like as someone who like films giving money out, that's my internal battle where I just like I hate sometimes I look at videos where I just like I'll give cash and I'll be like, why'd you do that? I'll pretend to be poor, like back, and it's a really cool, it's a beautiful spiritual experience for me to just constantly I'm always at battle, with my soul. And I think that's important. People shouldn't beat themselves up at that. Because if you're not, your brain can go to a pretty dark place and justify,
Certain things, yeah.
murdering thousands of people, But I look at like World War II, I always think about that, I thought like when I was little, you watch the war movies, you're like, man, if I was there, I would have been the guy to fucking defend, like who would rat on a Jew? And now it's like, but an entire country did that. Everyone's just like ratting people out. And I think we saw that kind of during COVID. People are like ratting out their neighbors, like, and I've saw that like someone's sitting on their porch and the police show up, person out the window, like looking,
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about
kind of
that.
a spin off there.
We were talking about that at Jordan and I, kind of like the mass formation psychosis and how dark human beings can go. And that's what I think you got onto this basically talking about how God is. You center your actions and your decisions and your direction a lot based on God, and that grounds you and that keeps you focused on what's important.
Yeah, and here in El Salvador, I think, I think that everything will be cool, as long as the leaders keep that as a focus. And I think they need to be careful of pride, because they have the attention of the whole world, just to everything, to even to the things that you wear, the things that you say, your personal relationships,
Yeah. So what's next for you? Well, you kind of mentioned it. You got a bunch of different projects that you're trying to build out. And when is the farm going to be ready?
We want to open in December. That's kind of the goal. It'll be like not everything is going to be open, We want to have like our corner store, restaurant, hotel. It'll only have like 7 or 8 rooms, maybe 9 open by then. But kind of the idea now is as long as El Salvador stays how it is, safe and an inspiring country to be in, my goal is to kind of just really expand this. Like I imagine spending another $10 million on having really cool bungalows and hotel rooms, and we can go and we can build more women's shelters, like then that's where we have some property right now. Like what if we build another women's shelter? And then we built like a large, there's fucking dogs everywhere here. What if we build a really cool, everyone pitches in, some Bitcoin, and we buy a really big piece of land and we build a giant animal shelter with a thing where we can sterilize and cut all the nuts off the dogs in the streets. You know what I mean? People can go there to adopt dogs, but then we can build out a hostel, and maybe this will be a place for Bitcoiners who want to, or anyone who wants to travel and backpack and stay there $20 a night, as opposed to one of our rooms that might cost $300 a night. And it's like this, you stay here, you're feeding animals and cutting dogs' nuts off. You know what I mean? Cool things like that.
That's the life. Yeah.
Animals should just like every charitable thing I think has to be based around work.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm really focused on. I've really changed my outlook on charity,
Interesting.
giving things away can really destroy families, just like how a lot of pro sports players, they kind of lose everything. I've watched a lot of like case studies on that, and how it's destroyed families. Mothers don't talk to kids anymore. Like, oh, like it just that whole greed comes in.
Yeah.
Just
And so
people need to work.
is this what you're gonna? Well, let me back up for a second. I got two questions from this. Is this something that you realized through charity? And then the second thing is that why you're now focused on more helping people fish, like build businesses and than just giving away money?
Yeah. And I mean, at the same time too, it's like doing those videos. I kind of want to get back to doing more. I abandoned my TikTok and kind of let that go to hell. But I need to get back and create more content, because it is those videos that raise a lot of the money to be able to do this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't have to be about just giving away money. I got really burned out when my daughter was born, and I was just like going through, like, my wife had like postpartum depression and stuff that you don't see on people's social media, right? It was really hard, and I went and filmed I probably have like 20 things I filmed on my phone that I just never like edited or uploaded, because I'm just like going through this, like that internal battle, right? Of like, I want to do meaningful things. I don't want to just like hand out money or like, look what I'm doing, but there's really cool stuff, like for example, we did a thing where I just like stood in the corner and I had a camera guy film it. And that's why I didn't upload it, because he was filming me do it. And I'm just like, I don't need to do that. Like, I always film everything where I'm like, the camera is the point of view, but it was really cool. It was like, it was a poor area of Ahuachapan by the border, the poor city. And it was like a lady there. I was like, and we're in front of this like store that sells like fridges, stoves, beds, bikes, like one of those stores. And I was like, what do you want from here? And I was like, if you could pick anything from here, what would it be? Like, just, playing around with her. And she's like, oh, I don't have a bed. My mom, really poor people. My mom, she sleeps on like a cardboard. And I was like, come here. And I was like, here's your bed. I was like, give her the nicest bed. And the store people were like, oh, hell yeah. Here you go. Here's your nicest bed. And now before you leave, before you're able to take this, you have to find one person in the streets. And I was like, you believe in God? I was like, ask God right now to bring you to the right person. And then, but it was such a crazy, like, and I even stopped filming it. And it was so wild. Like, this lady was like, I didn't have a fridge. And I was like praying to not have a fridge. Like these little tiny, I love this kind of content. But the only reason I didn't like it, because he was like really focused on me and not focused on them. Like they're kind of like crying, and he just has the camera pointed at me. And I was like, I hate this video now. But the experience was awesome. And it just needed to have the camera at the person and not me. Like, look what I'm doing. Because it doesn't come from my pockets. It comes from people donating,
So that's interesting. Can we, I got so many questions here. We've gone everywhere with this conversation, but I'm really interested in the creative process. And like, you as a content creator, do you go back and see some of your old content and just cringe at it and just learn?
Some of it, it depends on my mood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It just depends on your mood, but for the most part, I'm grateful, because even the cringiest of the videos is the whole reason that I'm doing what I'm doing now. And maybe that's kind of where I was going with before, where I had that big event that just totally failed. It's like sometimes we do things and it's just things that'll teach us to be able to get to another point. You know what I mean? And I think it's kind of dangerous too sometimes with religion, is like, oh, don't do that. Don't hang out with that person. Don't, like, we're so scared for someone to quote unquote sin. But if it wasn't for that person, partaking of the apple, is the whole purpose of coming here, is to learn and to grow. And I think making mistakes is how we gain wisdom. You know what I mean?
So you started by giving people money and like building people houses, and now it sounds like you've kind of transitioned into building microeconomies. Would you say that was another lesson you learned along the way?
Yeah, basically.
Sorry. So yeah, what I was trying to mention earlier is there's two lanes of trust that you've developed. One is with you, like Aaron's not going to steal the money. And the second is what you're doing with the money is worthwhile. I mean, so much that people keep donating the money. Do you say there's a difference in the way people give money when you're just, hey, I'm going to build this person a house, i.e., give them money, versus no, we're going to build a hotel and restaurant, we're going to build a quad motorcycle business for these people in Oaxaca? Like, is there a perception difference here in the way your donors view what you're doing, or how
Well,
you view it?
I think like every foundation has their own following. You know what I mean? And it has to do with the person who's following it has had their own experiences. You know, some people might have went through homelessness, and so they really like, wow, they got a home. That's the most beautiful thing. Another person might have went through like addiction. So there's foundations that help people who are drug addicts in the streets, and then they clean them up. Those, you know what I mean? They have their own different, you know. So I think in life, everyone has to find their own thing to find their tithing, to give their tithing, because tithing is a very important concept, you know, and that's kind of where I think, back on the Bitcoin thing or government here, it's like the idea of communism sounds really cool. Everyone eats, everyone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
they
it's
don't.
yeah,
But then they don't eat.
but they don't eat, you know. It's like every diet works, you know. You can follow really healthy vegan diets, I guess, if you really just get all the supplementation and eat enough, you know. And then other people, you know, you can eat and I've done like every diet, you know. I'll look back and I did a like carnivore diet for like 6 months. I felt equally amazing. I you know, a lot of my red inflammation went away, but it's just about how you do it, you know. So yeah, you can go on a keto diet and just eat bacon and the like really bad fats, you know what I mean? So it all comes back down to like the moral of every system. You have to have that moral code, because it can get dirty really quick. I think I'm off subject. You know, I don't remember what we're talking about.
It's all good, man.
You know?
Yeah.
I first started though, we were kind of chatting about like for me was I got to Bogota. So I went sober. It's kind of a wild pre-story. I went sober, right? After I hit my rock bottom, and I did this thing where I called myself the shitty vegan. Because like, I'm going vegan not because about the animals, but I want to have an equal energy that I used to put into partying, because I, you know, 7 days a week parties, you know. So I went vegan and I juiced every single day, and I found a deer in the forest, a baby deer that the mom abandoned or got ran over. So I had this deer living with me that I like kept
in Bogota.
No, this is in the States.
Oh,
I had a deer that I kept in a German Shepherd dog. It was wild. And so I'm like vegan, like juicing kind of before. And I had this deer, and like every like week I would take a picture of me holding my like baby deer, and the deer would get bigger. So the deer was all big, and I'm just like getting kind of shredded from this vegan
how
thing.
long did you have the deer?
And like 2018.
No, but like for like years.
About a year.
You had a pet deer for a year.
And then I drove her to Washington in a car. Like, it was bad, dude. We stopped in Idaho, and the deer like escaped at a gas station. She was so trained though. She was like, she watches Netflix. She would go to parties with me. So like, she wasn't afraid of like raves, dude. We
I've
would
never
throw
heard of a
raves.
domestic deer. Have you? I've never
No.
heard of a deer being domesticated.
Super domesticated, dude. Like potty trained her. She would like go out to
Give her like a dish, a bowl of food.
Yeah,
like,
dude, if I scroll on the bottom of my Instagram, you'll see all the pictures of the deer. Because before that, when I was partying, I had a goat. I had a
that's more normal. Yeah.
yeah, I had a pygmy goat, and the goat was like, the goat was demonic, I think. The goat got stolen by like a witch, dude. I'm afraid to like mention who she is, but she like manages all these celebrities like Miley Cyrus. Everyone's like animals, you know, and she's like way into like witchy stuff.
She stole your pygmy goat.
She wanted my goat because she's like, this goat has a bunch of like spirit. She's a powerful goat.
Oh my god.
It was wild,
This story
dude.
is fucking crazy.
Yeah, so she got rid of the goat. Anyway, the deer came in, but now I'm like the sober face. I'm like, this is a deer now, you know?
Well, I guess we should be glad life pointed you in a certain direction, because it sounds like you could have built a big following from having a pet deer as well. You could
dude,
be
my original like MURPH's Life content was like, I was like living with just a group of strippers and people
and a
like
deer.
this is before that, dude. This is the goat face, dude. And it was just like, everyone's like, why don't you have a Snapchat? Because my Snapchat was like permanently banned for, I don't know if I can mention it, like
Strippers and goats.
just people like doing lines off of people's wieners and chicks. And I would like film it, be like, I thought he was homophobic. You know what I mean? Like just wild. pornographic content, and to see what it's transformed into.
Very wholesome and
Yeah, but
So, all right,
it was still MURPH's Life. I love how it's the same
it was just
brand.
my name that I had.
okay,
It wasn't like a brand. It was just my name that I made on
Yeah.
can we talk
Instagram.
about
And
what drove you to sobriety?
I've been a lot of things. I was getting severe anxiety and panic attacks, and I got a DUI. My business went to shit. I was just like, my relationships were it was just like hitting rock bottom is bad. You know what I mean? We can look back and laugh at experiences and stories, but you really look back and it's just like, that's a fucked up life, No one wants to live like that. And I think one of the real ones was when I was in Park City, Utah, and I was just like drinking like way too much. And then a friend of mine took GHB, if you know what that is.
That date rape drug.
Yeah, the
Right?
liquid.
Yeah.
Which is like really popular in Utah. Well, I mean, all over the
Is
states.
that roofie?
Basically, you don't really mix it with a lot of alcohol. It's killed a lot of people, So I had like a bunch of it, and like I knew I was gonna die. It was weird. I'm like, okay, like I'm dying, and I've like been on the brinks of overdose from like ecstasy and blow and ketamine and mixed with lots of alcohol and maybe like 50 times. But this was like your body tells you, And I was just like lying in my bed, vomiting. And yeah, have you ever had sleep paralysis?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of felt like that, where I was just like really holding on, like of that fear. That's why it felt like sleep paralysis. Really hold on. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I was like, I want to let go. And then it was just like this crazy, like I come out of the top of my head. And I had like a really wild experience, in my apartment. I'm like touching the wooden door. I remembered the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, and I'm like touching the door, and like the wood would give me information of how it was a tree and it served its purpose,
This was on ketamine or
No, it was just like alcohol. I drank like a giant thing of, and I'm like, this is probably gonna kill me, and I just kept drinking it, and then I had GHB, and that'll stop your heart pretty quick.
oh okay.
And then I just like, and I like walked through the door, and one of my friends was there, and he's like, it was wild. It was really wild. I could hear like spirits playing music from like when they were on Earth, weird like Celtic like ding, ding. I don't know what the hell it was. And I was like communicating with these other like dark entities, and I couldn't understand it. And then I was like, why can't I understand it? And everything is like telepathy. And it was like, this is a forbidden language. God, his children aren't allowed to understand this, where you're at this plane, like crazy shit,
From alcohol and GHB, you tapped into this.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
And anyway, like, and then I go and I see my bed, and when I actually came out, it was like, let me see. But I was so sick, and then all of a sudden I'm like, when I came out, I'm like, oh, I feel amazing. And I look at my bed, or I look at my body, and it was just like, it was gross. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm dead. Just like,
well, you had an out of body experience.
Yeah, I'm out of my body, and I'm looking at my body, and it's just like, ugh, And so like I walked through the door. That's what I was talking about, like touching the wood, having that kind of experience. And then it was just like there was this kind of like this tunnel thing, and this thing was like, I can't remember. That's like the closest I can kind of come to repeating what it was like saying to me, like this like weird noise, and then I could repeat it back perfectly, and then all of a sudden it's just like this like transforming pig type thing kind of like comes through the door, and it wants to take me, and it's like, you can have all of the wisdom of the universes, and I was just like, I want to go back to my body. I'm like, my soul is freaked out, and that was like my come to God. Like I want to go, and I'll be a missionary. I will really be I'll serve you, God, if I can have my health and my body and be on earth, one more time. And I'm just like, boom, and then I'm like barfing, and my body was just like, it was dead. It was weirdest feeling, and it was just like the spirit is telling me you need to drink water. So I like crawl, open the door. My friend's like, what the fuck, dude? Like freaked out. I'm like crawling up to my sink, and I'm just like drinking water. I'm like, you guys got to go home. So I'm 3 days in my house of just like things grabbing my leg, like this freaky, hearing laughing, hearing voices. And that was kind of the main thing that, you know what I mean? And I still partied a few times after that, but it was just like, that was like my number one,
Wake up.
kind of wake up call. And, it's like something's out there, so I chose to put my faith in God, and I left my, my friendships in California and all any of that like weird talk. I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to hear this, this is my personal. I chose to believe now in God and Christ, and that's my thing.
So yeah, it's amazing. Sobriety's changed your life, changed the trajectory of your life. Sounds like
Yeah.
awesome.
Are you going to be at Adopting Bitcoin conference in November?
I don't know. Normally we go to a lot of conferences, but my team goes for me
Mm.
because I'm just like I'm a workaholic. I hang out with poor people with dirt floors all the time, and they'll go and kind of represent. But I might be.
Cool.
I've never been to a conference before.
Yeah, well, Adopting Bitcoin is the high signal conference for builders in El Salvador, and a lot of people that are actually building the things that are required for Bitcoin to exist in real life. This is the kind of conference where those builders go.
Mhm.
So you can get your privileged access pass to meet these builders with discount code Soft Studios. It's happening in November. It's a great opportunity.
Here?
Maybe Murph's Life will be here. It's in El Salvador. Yeah. It's not directly in here, but it's
What day is it? Because I have to go to Ecuador too in November.
14th or 15th, right? 15th and 16th.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
I gotta check on let me double check.
And then we're actually having a retreat right before the conference. You want to tell us about that, Michael?
Yeah, sure. Okay. The week of Adopting Bitcoin, November 10th through the 14th, we are having our Building El Salvador retreat. This is your ultimate introduction to El Salvador. If you've been thinking about it, if you've been wondering about it, you've been, considering it for a plan B or a plan A, and you want to get that curiosity satisfied, come to this retreat. You're going to be around amazing, awesome people. We got Eric Stacks. He's going to be there in attendance. Also Luke Mikic. My bad, Luke, if I said that wrong, man. But anyways, these are all-star Bitcoiners that they're going to be in attendance, and we're working on some other names that are going to hang out, and you get to pick their brain all about Bitcoin and El Salvador. So November 10th through 14th, check it out at buildingelsalvador.com.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I feel like we've been going a while, which is why I cut into our our promotions here. Anything else you want to say? It's been great talking to you, man. Thanks for being so transparent and authentic with your stories and sharing everything. It's really enlightening.
It's actually pretty inspirational. And it's also, for me, it's like kind of a testament to what you can achieve. If you orient yourself towards truth and helping people out, it seems like things fall into place. And then also El Salvador, it just, for me, my experience, it just has a way of things transpiring over here that make it easy and things fall into place.
Yeah, no, it's a cool place. There's a lot of opportunity here. That's really cool. I'm learning about you guys. I've been following a little bit on Twitter and X. That's cool. So if the person comes down here, what's kind of the experience? I saw a little bit of a video that you guys did. Is it the same place, Bitcoin Mansion?
Yeah, it's at the Bitcoin Mansion. Starts on Sunday. It'll go till Thursday. And basically, we take 3 excursions. We go to downtown El San Salvador, the historic center. We see the palace, the library. We walk around there. We go to El Zonte, check out Bitcoin Beach, see where it all began, pay with Bitcoin somewhere, use an ATM. And then we go to Lago Coatepeque, which closer to where you are. Michael and I, on our first trip here, we spent some time there and we really liked it. The air is fresh and it's just cool. Yeah. Go out, take a ferry on the lake.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice place. So you get to see the lay of the land. Then we have a networking event so people can meet our friends and our people here. We'll invite you. So it's just a chance to really come. And we do workshops as well. So people that are interested in El Salvador, like real estate or coming down to build a business or whatever it is, you just get your questions answered by people that have spent time here. Because a lot of people are really interested about it, but they don't even know where to begin. Like, am I just going to fly blindly to El Salvador? I don't know anyone. So it's meant to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's a kickstart for people. Like El Salvador is a beacon of hope right now for a lot of people in this world, and there's a lot of Canadians, a lot of people in
A lot of
Western.
Canadians.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, we're starting to get more of the international community starting to reach out to us. People from Australia, New Zealand, Canada. They're starting to reach out now.
Yeah.
Before our last retreat was pretty much all Americans.
How many people you guys like what's the max amount of people? What do they pay? What's the max amount of people?
Yeah, so the max amount of people for this retreat is going to be 18.
You don't want more than 18.
No, we try to keep it intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had what, 22 plus our team of 5. And it was like, it was perfect. You had enough time to meet everyone and kind of.
You had enough variety where people were stimulated with all types of conversations and all types of personalities and stuff like that. But the underlying orientation, I think, is that these are outside the box thinkers.
Yeah.
That they have some type of ethical boundaries within like the Bitcoin ethos and also even Christianity. And so it's a certain subset of people that I think we're attracting right now who are interested in El Salvador, freedom-minded people, liberty-minded people, sovereign-minded people, builders, entrepreneurs, things like, people like that. And so let's get these people together. Let's get them to see what, the opportunities that exist here in El Salvador, and let's see what kind of connections can be made, And so we already have people who on our last retreat are coming down now for a longer stay, 3 months, 2 months, stuff like that.
They're gonna stay for 3 or 2 months.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
So
there are people that legitimately might want to move here. So they came to the retreat to check it out. Now we're ready for the next step, which is like a 2 or 3 month trip.
so the
And then they pay like $4,000 for the. That includes like the stay, the
45.
food.
Yeah.
So
It's
cool.
white glove service. Pick you up from the airport, take you do everything. All you got to pay for is extra souvenirs you might want somewhere.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like, it was a journey on how we can start creating value, provide an offer. But
do you guys like this is just my outside curiosity, you know what I mean? Maybe some people have similar curiosity. So when by you guys like wanting to set up this business, is this the business, or do you guys like have other, for example, like you're gonna build here and then you guys would be like a partner on it with them, or is it this is just the business model of them coming out? And
We've got so many
I guess what's the business
lines in the
model
water.
and what's it, where do you see it in like 2-3 years? Like where does this turn into?
So this retreat aspect of it is a community building exercise. Yes, it's a profit generating activity as well, but it's about building community because eventually we're building the great sovereign society.
Yeah.
Some kind of, similar to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Make a little village where people can come, shared values, make the food, grow the food, sell it organic.
Just live a lifestyle that's a lot more in alignment with your values. I think we all realized during COVID, like living around communists sucks. So living around like-minded people, freedom-minded people, having good neighbors with ethical values, people that you can trust, people that, your kids can play with and, like their kids and stuff like that. Just a trusted community, trusted network. And the retreat de facto kind of acts as a gateway for that. So long-term vision is like, hey, and you might know this, as you get started, right? Mm-hmm. And you take steps towards working towards a goal, it's like all these opportunities start to open up and like new pathways reveal themselves. And it's like, I didn't even know that was possible, but yeah, let's go for it. And it's so,
yeah,
cool.
But that's the general direction that we're headed in. How it all looks like, can we get these retreats to a point where they're profitable and then self-sustaining? That way we can work on other aspects of this. That would be interesting.
Another someone that came on the retreat as well, Tommy, he's actually moving down here on Friday to work with us for a month as a trial period. So it's also an opportunity to expand our team, see if we vibe, because a lot of people are interested in what we're doing here. A lot of people are interested in El Salvador, like, hey, I want to work with you guys. Well, it's like, okay, pay to play, so to speak. Come meet us, come spend time, see if your vibe matches our vibe. And then, all right, if it works out, maybe there's an opportunity for you to come stay at the headquarters, bring some value to the table. And then we see if, we bring you into the team. And then potentially what we offer as a business after that is expanded because we've just brought in new talent that helps us,
It's an organic way. And it's also, I have you know, these visions, they're not short term. They're like, this is so ingrained with kind of who I am as a person, right? Like I feel like we're right at the cusp of creating a new paradigm, and super interesting to me, and
Yeah.
in total alignment with my values. So it's like, yeah, this can be my life's work. I'm looking at this from like 10, 20-year perspective as well. Like
No,
putting
that's
effort
cool.
into this.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of on the same, a lot of people that come down here are totally different, a lot of just like kind of wacky, but we're all wacky. You know what I mean?
We're pioneers on a new frontier.
Dreamers,
I mean, to leave your home country, your cousins, you got to be a little wacky. You know what I mean? You got to went through like to be able to step outside of that real bubble. You know what I mean? It's cool.
But I also feel like we
Um,
live in an age, or at least maybe we're coming out of an age where it's just so easy to just hop on a flight and go back and visit. Now, maybe it won't be as
yeah.
easy in the future, but
What is it, like a 3-hour flight to Miami from LA to New York? How many hours is it?
5. No,
You
I think it's
know?
a 2-hour flight to Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
An
pretty
hour and a
pretty-
half.
It's wild. Even California, it's just like no different if you live in like California or North Dakota. You know what I mean? It's
Can I ask you something? Sorry to switch subjects so abruptly, but like, since I just had this thought, because you probably know you probably experienced this firsthand, more so than most people in the world, but like the power of the internet, right? The power of
Yeah.
the internet to bring people together for a collective action, right? And so one of the philosophies that we're working off of is that this is why we created this podcast. So we can broadcast our message. We're going to find people on that frequency, find people on that wavelength, right? Find people that resonate with us. And through that, we're going to kind of slowly expand and build our
Yeah.
team organically, as well as our community.
Yeah.
What's your experience been like that, since you got such a big like social media platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time. Like creating a community is you got to be careful that you don't bring on too many wives, right? Like if we're all men, it's like every business partner is kind of like a new wife.
Yep.
It's a new partner. Essentially, it's the same word. Um we've because a lot of people are kind of looking for something to fill a void in their life. Something doesn't feel right. And we've attracted some like really whack jobs, I mean, recently too, just someone who's been following my like TikTok and Instagram for a long time. I'm like, dude, this person's like, these are the type of people that I don't even want to throw it out there, but you can already, you know what I mean? Like, just do the unthinkable, like fucking creeper. You know what I mean? That's just kind of like being careful of that, and allowing if we're gonna bring people here, it's like we're not your religion, we're not your parents, we're not. It's like go do your own thing, just want to inspire people to come here and do, and don't maybe not associate too much, because then that can kind of get a little, and you
They
just
could
feel
get
like you have a
but
bunch of not needy children.
dependent.
Yeah, and that can be kind of a challenge, like for me, like as we're developing like a volunteer program, we've had hundreds if not thousands of volunteers who come down too, and we have right now they'll pay $1,500, $1,500 to $2,000 for a week trip, and the same thing will kind of
Wow.
accommodate, and it's
So
like a
people
mission
pay
trip.
you to volunteer?
Yeah.
Okay,
We've
interesting.
slowed it down right now. We just had our last one leave yesterday, just so we can really focus on. There's so many permits, and it's we're trying to get everything planted while we still have a bit of rain season. But yeah, kind of a similar thing where people can come down and really see where their money is going. So it's like they come down and we'll kind of spend that money on building. Right now we're building like raised box gardens in old folks' homes, kind of near our thing. And we're already planting like food for them, and then we'll come and just buy that for the restaurant.
Yeah.
And we're dropping them off organic fertilizer that we create with coffee husk and manure and whatnot. But that's all paid for, and they get to build that and learn how to build with bricks and walk around Waiua, walk around the city, spend a couple days here in the city. It's kind of a cool experience for them to have. And again, that's why I want to build a kind of
The hostel.
the hostel part,
Yeah.
right? For them to stay in. But I'm sure there's a lot of synergies too. We can work on some stuff together, We can do
Absolutely.
some really cool, like if you guys want to come down there, I'm probably gonna leave not tomorrow. I'm gonna go down on Thursday to our farm, and you guys can see like where we're building the pool. Like I don't want it to be like, oh, we have like a spa. We have 'cause my idea a long time ago when I was the shitty vegan. I think that's kind of everything always ties back into right now, is when I quit smoking cigarettes, the only way I was able to quit smoking cigarettes and alcohol, my two biggest vices, was by doing a fast. I had to just like not eat food, not drink water, and just like kind of suffer. Like fasting is powerful. It really like
Yep.
you put your body, we can go into that for quite a while. Fasting is really cool. Even if you're atheist, people know that fasting is powerful. And so the whole thing that I wanted to build here is a place. I always kind of had that idea and vision of when I went in 2017, 2018, when I went sober, was I was like writing in a journal, like one day I want to have a place. And it's crazy. I look back at like my journal writing. I'm like, this is like exactly like what I was like writing about, when I was fasting. And when I went sober, when I was the shitty vegan, I stayed in a cabin, like kind of by myself I would fast for like 4 days, and I would like put a thing over my eyes. I didn't study about it. I just did it. Like I would just like meditate and fast and just talk to God, and I have like pretty powerful experiences. But that vision really did come true. And a lot of people talk about manifesting. It's the same thing as it says, in the Bible, where with faith you can move mountains. If you really believe in something, like you can look at everything that you guys will build or have built in your life, the amount of people coming here, eventually I can see you guys building that community. And to build a community, we have to move rock, cement, sand, and you're literally moving mountains
You know
to
what?
be able to create your reality, physically moving mountains.
So this is super interesting because I was thinking about this today. We walk here to a trail path, right? And the trail path is they're doing construction on it. They're literally like carving the mountain down, right?
Yeah,
And
moving mountains.
So they can make a nature trail for us.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're in nature.
So
here.
it's a
Yeah,
here in
here.
this.
I thought you guys were talking about like Los Chorros.
No,
No.
And so,
But that is like that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's annoying because you have all these trucks and traffic.
They're doing that for a trail. They're moving there. Why don't they just like make a little?
Well, they're cutting down a lot of the trees and all the brush. I don't even know.
No,
why.
it's not. It's not. They're just shaving the side of the mountain to make it more safe for landslides and stuff like that. So, and it's annoying because they got these tractors there, and you got to walk through the traffic. But at the same time, it's really impressive and cool to see what human beings are capable of. Literally
moving mountains,
literally reshaping. The earth.
We got like 2-3 podcasts if we keep going. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So,
I've had to go to the bathroom for like an hour. I just keep thinking, we're almost at a closing point.
I've been pinching my bladder.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, it's a good place to close off, and
we'll do this again sometime.
My closer too is like I was saying. That's what we were talking about. I just wanted to invite you guys to go down there, and that's what I was talking about. Is I want to have like cold plunges. I want to have we're building out like a sauna. We're building out. We're gonna have like a salad bar where you'll have like quinoa, all the different the different vegetables and fruits, and how I quit smoking and drinking was through doing a fast, and then after a dry fast, getting into like juice fasting. So maybe this could be something else that can be kind of cool for people to come down. We could rent it out and do some really cool, you want to quit smoking cigarettes. It's a very powerful, like if, it's people will quit smoking cigarettes,
detox.
nicotine. For a solid detox, and then go out and
you could do all types of. So if that's the area I'm thinking about, like in between there, the volcanoes and stuff like that, is that where it is? No,
it's where Sonsonate, Santa Ana is?
Yeah.
So both of them have like, here's the mountain, and you can go up through Sonsonate, through Santa Ana. Have you been to Huayua, the little coffee town?
No.
Okay. So you go up here, and then you get to a roundabout, and then it'll force you to go straight. It'll be like a crossroad, and it'll force you to go straight. They'll take you to Huayua, then Huachapan, then it's the road that'll take you to Guatemala, the route of the flowers, Ruta de las Flores. So as soon as you get to that, it's like the Desvío del Conejo, it's like the rabbit roundabout. And then ours is the whole like the Quebrada, so it's like a big cliff, and that's where we're having our hiking trails, like go in the cliff. And then we're building the hotel like on top, and that's why it has a really cool the view of the ocean. You can see the city at night. You can see all the shipping containers. You have the big volcano.
Yeah, so that whole area and in general,
the
mountain
coolest area in El Salvador.
Yeah, it just seems perfect for health and wellness, and that type of inward introspection and transformation kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's really rad, and it's always like 65 degrees. Kind of like what you guys are talking about up on the lake. It's really like fresh, Yeah, it's really, really cool. It's not too like overly developed in that spot. And a lot of people that are building their homes, a lot of people are building beautiful homes. You know, like people with money are building really cool homes, and they're kind of like building it into the trees. They're not cutting down too many trees down. And that's what I love about kind of this area, you know. And I'm like, every day, like people are coming from like Canada. There's probably about 400 or 500 people that I've met in total that have already moved up here, you know, into that kind of that area. And it is like you were saying, a lot of Canadians, tons of Canadians.
You know, so if just to go, if you look here, one of the things that you mentioned, like they're building within the harmony with nature, right? They're not cutting down the trees, they're building into it and stuff like that. You know, I look at this development here that we're staying in, and it just seems like it's just like a concrete jungle within a forest. You know, it's not like integrated into the to the
Yeah,
nature
they
itself.
fucking cut everything down. That's what I don't like about the builds here.
Yeah. And so, you know, just more consciousness on how we like form our communities and our living areas is probably be big, you know, to build things around our circadian rhythm. Like you're building a farm, an organic farm around your hotel. Like that type of stuff, I think is like the projects that I'm really interested in happening over here. So I'm excited to go check your stuff out.
Yeah, I'm hang.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll have
Jordan's
you- we'll
ready
have
to
you on again
preach.
soon.
Yeah, all of it.
Sweating bullets.